Welcome to the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddux, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome to the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Maddux. Super stoked to be here again. We're sponsored by Motion Ops, the top software for service contractors to go run and scale their business. So very excited about today's episode. We're joined by Juan Godinez, longtime buddy of mine. Juan, I'm just honestly stoked to have you. So this is a quick little intro, guys. Juan and I have known each other for, probably 20 plus years. This is background for the audience to kind of know a little bit about you. I've done sales on and off for most of my adult career, most of my adult life. I love sales, talking about sales, anything about sales. And I wanted Juan to join us because there's just a select few people that I feel like are much better than me at sales. And that's why I wanted to have Juan on. I feel like I can sell with the best of them, but there's a few out there where I'm like, dude, like it's really hard to touch what you can do. And I feel like you're up there in the upper echelon as far as quality of salespeople, really understanding sales, the sales process, just everything. So in his background, Juan started in the pest control industry back in 2006 as a door-to-door sales rep for Rove Pest Control. And he soon became Rove's top sales rep and manager year after year. Juan took a few years away to just do something small, became a JAG for the Air Force, no biggie. Practiced law and decided to come back in 2016, back to the home service industry. And as far as it goes, he partnered with Rove as an interest holder in two of Rove's branches, and now is involved in several aspects of Rove's growth across various markets, including sales and mergers and acquisitions. And also, you do represent Rove in in-house legal, so you're kind of combining the best of everything that you know and do, right? So also an Air Force veteran, so thanks for your service, and also is involved in several veterans initiatives. So Juan, thanks for being here, man. We're stoked to have you, dude.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I don't know if I'm a better sales rep than you, but you can throw down. I'm honored that you would consider me in the upper echelon.
Yeah, dude, you're phenomenal, my man. You're phenomenal. And like I said, so if you're growing a service business, I just want to talk for a second just for our audience. So I feel like there's a few things that you really need to learn how to do very well. You got to learn how to recruit. You got to learn your operations and your processes and how to train and develop people. But one of the most important things to me is sales, right? There's a saying that sales covers a multitude of sins. So you could kind of suck at some of these other things, but if you know how to sell, you can kind of make up for it, right? And so really understanding sales, the sales processes and everything else is, to me, very crucial. And Juan, I feel like you're one of the best at it, right? And so you definitely know a lot of really cool things. You're up to some really cool things on top of just, selling and developing sales teams. So I want to talk about that as well too. But, one thing I do want to talk about here, because I feel like this is just a really cool talking subject. So you've been selling pest, on and off throughout a lot of your career. And I can't remember the exact year. I don't know if it was 2020, 2021. I think you broke an all-time record for most pest control contracts signed in a week. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks back to back, I sold about 100 pest control, not just sold, but serviced is what the key indicator is for.
Yeah, so not just selling it, but actually getting it serviced in that week too.
If it doesn't go at service, it doesn't count. So yeah, serviced 103 accounts in 1 week.
Wow.
To kind of put that in perspective, a good first-year rep will probably service about 125 accounts in a whole summer in about 4 months. I was able to do that in about a week.
It's amazing.
Week time. You want to know what it took to do that?
Yeah, sure. Tell us everything, dude.
So the key to sales to me is it's just work ethic. I've got some natural ability. I can connect with people. I certainly didn't start that way in my sales career. I still remember the first sale I ever got. I can visualize it in my head right now. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a new construction neighborhood, and I went and knocked on this door, and I had all those nerves, right, just like oozing out of me.
Yep.
And I remember the customer saying yes, and I just had this wash of blankness just wash over my face.
Like, what do I do?
No idea what was going on. This was back in the day before iPads, so I just started, writing the contract out on the paper right there on the doorstep, and I was so lost. I didn't know which blocks to fill out. I didn't know what to do. Um, but over the years, I put in just a ton of work and hours to perfect the craft, and including, just being out there and working and being present and showing up. And after just putting in all those reps and all those reps, it just became second nature. So when I eventually broke the record for most services in a week for our company of 103 accounts, which for those that aren't in the pest control industry, that's about it's over $60,000 of revenue generated in 1 week. By the time I got to that week, I just dialed in. I knew what I had to do. It was during COVID, so lots of people were home. Every door I knocked,
It was a great time to sell, right?
a great time to sell, and I capitalized on it because I knew that was the case. So I left the house at 8 a.m. and I didn't get back home till like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And I didn't. You've worked with me, Trevor. I don't like to eat without working.
Yeah.
So I think I had
Just
a
focus.
handful of almonds or something like that, and uh, was just out there dedicated and committed.
So you leave at 8 a.m. and you be back by what, 10? 10 at night? What time?
10 p.m. Yeah, driving home. That night, I think probably around, that every day that week, probably home around 10 p.m. with including the drive home. Sometimes a little bit later, depending on if there are callbacks
Yep.
that I had to go through. And then once, I get home, just texting and following up with everything else that I had to do or to close the other deals.
That's awesome. And I want to highlight a few things you just mentioned. So, you're willing to pay a price that most people aren't willing to pay. Most people are like, hey, dude, clock in, clock out, 9 to 5. But, like, if you really want to excel in sales, you got to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. I feel like in life, dude, if you want to achieve results that others results that others aren't able to achieve, you have to be willing to pay a price others aren't willing to pay. And like, dude, you just mentioned, like, yeah, man, I'm out selling by 8 and I'm done by 10. Like, most people aren't willing to do that. Like, they just aren't, right? And so you got to be willing to pay, a higher price to be able to go achieve those higher results. There's just no way around it. Now, another thing that you talked on, sorry, man, I just want to dive into some of these things. So you mentioned having to spend a lot of time to learn your craft and to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I look at it is, it's like, you need to learn and then you need to apply. You need to learn and apply. It's kind of like a boxer, right? So if you have a boxer, you got to learn to lift weights and train, but you also need ring time. You can't just like spend all your time in the ring and you can't spend all your time training. You have to do both. And you kind of mentioned you had to do both, learning and also applying it on the doors. So for you, can you walk us through a little bit of that process? Like what the learner's curve was like? What are some of the things you had to learn? Like what books you had to learn from? Like, I mean, there's so much that goes into what you just said very quickly. So can you maybe just like reverse engineer that a little bit for our listeners?
First, I'll say I was trained by, and my mentor in sales is a well-recognized expert. Some of your listeners might know him, Lenny Gray.
Oh yeah.
He wrote written several books on sales, Door to Door Millionaire, and then Door to Door Millionaire 2, and he's recently come out with some other material. And so he personally trained me. I shadowed him. He gave me feedback. So starting off with having a good mentor in the industry, and having worked with you, Trevor, as well. I mean, having shadowed you and learned from you. Um, there's people out there that know how to sell and that can do it at a high level. You need to get with those people.
Yeah.
You need to work with them. You need to learn from them. You need to study their materials, and it has to be from someone that's proven that methodology is successful.
I agree
So first, it's
100%.
finding the right materials, um, and then once you have them, diving into it. So going back again to my first year of sales, uh, one ability that I have is I can criticize myself without getting down on myself.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can recognize where I suck and where I need to improve without like feeling like my world's going to end or whatever. So having the right materials, knowing the process. So when I was out selling, in between each contact, between each prospect I would talk to, I would break down what just occurred in that conversation. So I was mentally engaged between contacts, between sales contacts, knowing what can I do? next time a contact, a prospect gives me an objection, that same concern, how do I need to respond to that? What can I say differently to respond to that? So doing those mental reps in my head all the time while I was working, I saw a ton of improvement from the first door I knocked, even in one day, to the very last day,
It's
because I was
amazing.
constantly improving. And then when I would get home after long days of work, I would break out the study manual. A lot of guys in our industry, in the home service industry, that are involved in sales and prospecting, they like to go home and turn on the Xbox, or turn on the TV, and just kind of tune out. But those are critical hours where your mind is still soaking in the events of the day, and you can reflect back on what occurred and study different areas where you know that you need to improve on. So that's what I would do. My first year, and then second and third year, I was always in our training manual. I was in these training manuals that Lenny had put together, learning about my craft. Fast forward years later, when I come back to work with Rove, and I'm the top sales rep in the company, I'm breaking records. I'm still listening to things that I need to improve on to gain a better edge. My pitch throughout a summer will vary,
Yeah.
even nowadays, even from day one all the way to the last day of the summer. It's going to vary because I'm constantly getting better and improving.
You mentioned a few things that I just want to highlight for some of the audience here. So it's very easy to kind of get in this robotic mode of sales, of like, hey, here's my script. I just need to go get my script and that's it, right? But you actually talked about how you're mentally engaged while you're selling. And I think that's critical, right? And it's not just knocking to knock, or it's not just selling to sell, right? But in between each, conversation, in between each potential sale, you're stopping and reverse engineering. Hey, like, what went well? What could I improve on? Like, hey, the next time I have this, yes, that customer stopped me here. How do I handle that the next time it comes up, right? And then I can just tell you just have like this thirst and this hunger for excellence. It is so easy to come home and just like chill and like not really care, but like you care more about success than you do about, like, I don't know, playing Halo or playing, Fortnite. You know what I mean? And I think, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you see sales as a game? I feel like a lot of the best salespeople kind of see
Yeah,
sales as a game, right?
I'm 100% competitive.
Yeah.
It would kill me to think that there's someone better than me
Yeah.
at sales, right? We have a body, we both have two legs.
Yep.
You have a mouth, I have a mouth. You have a brain, I have a brain. Um, there's no advantage that you have over me. So there's no reason that I can't excel just as well as you, or even exceed what you can do. And just having that thirst to be the best. That's really what drives me. Um, because during a selling campaign, whether you're doing door-to-door sales, or you're cold calling, or you're out prospecting, that money that's supposed to motivate you, that's not going to hit your account until years, or until months down the road, or weeks down the
Yep.
road, whatever it may be. But what gives me that motivation day to day and hour to hour is to pull the best out of myself. So we kind of talked about materials to study and train. Um, Once I had sales down, there's always tweaks you can do here and there. Once I had that down, what really advanced me in my sales career was working on the mental aspect, becoming even more mentally tough, putting in more hours of work, just pushing myself to the furthest that I could. And that a lot of that ability to be mentally engaged, a lot of it came from changing my physical regimen as well. So I started incorporating working out in the morning,
It's awesome.
eating healthy, focusing more on proteins and fats instead of sugars, because
Yep.
my body, for me, doesn't respond well to that. So once I started making even those smaller adjustments, those physical adjustments, providing more mental energy for myself, um, that that changed the game for me. It gave me that competitive advantage that I was looking for.
That's awesome. I love it. So as far as sales and selling at a high level, there's so many aspects to this. I could probably talk for hours on this, and unfortunately we don't have that much time. I wish we did. For you, you've been through it. You've been able to sell yourself at a high level. You also help train, right? So a lot of our listeners is like, okay, I can sell, but how do I get my team to go sell, right? And you do pest control. Some of our listeners, they'll do like windows or they sell cleaning. I mean, there's a lot of things that our listeners do, right? Some it's landscaping. What do you think you do, or like what are some of the processes you've implemented to try to take someone that's fresh off the streets that has never sold your product or maybe never sold anything, period, and what do you do to help them to see success as quickly as possible? And, what have you seen kind of helps get these guys that are really good that can go be like mini Juans and go sell like at high volumes,
Yeah, very good question. And just for the benefit of the audience, I've sold everything other than, not just pest control. I've done alarms, solar, all of it. And so I hope what I share with everyone is it should be applicable across the board. I've helped train and recruit guys to other industries as well.
Awesome.
I've worked in that. But I'll say first and foremost, you got to pick the right people to hire and to train. Not everyone is going to be as responsive to your training as you would hope so. So there's a vetting process in the hiring process that is very critical. And I see a lot of people in the industry, in home service industries, skipping that vetting process and just hiring, anyone the first guy that walks through the door.
And dude, how much time do you think people waste trying to train those people?
You waste a lot of time training those people, trying to change a Dodge Ram into a Lamborghini, right? It's
not gonna happen, dude.
It's just not gonna happen, right? So that vetting process, hiring the right people, is critical. So some of the things that I've learned in hiring and bringing in the right people to train is you have to set expectations in the beginning during the hiring process. So if I interview a sales rep, if you sat in that room while I was interviewing a sales rep, it would seem like I was trying to sell them against doing the job.
Yeah.
I want to tell them the hardest part. They're going to have to prove that they are tough as nails in order to work with me and in order to be worth my time, right? Because why would I spend, hours training someone when I can just myself go produce, X amount of accounts?
Yeah.
So they gotta be worth it. So they have to prove that they're worth it. So I'm gonna give them. I'm not just gonna do one interview and then hire them right then and there. I'm gonna do a preliminary interview, and hopefully I have another teammate that I can pass them on for a second interview. But between that first interview and that second interview, I'm gonna give them some homework, and I'm gonna test to see how committed they are to this process. Because how committed they are to the hiring process will be a small window into allow you a small window into look into how they will be as an employee and as a sales rep.
That's great.
So working them through that system. Once they've proven that, they're keeping their commitments, they're showing up when they're supposed to show up, they're doing these hard challenges that I've given them, then okay, I'm all in. I'm gonna train this person, and once I make that commitment, it's 100% all in, because what I see is here's this sales rep, here's this human being that has given me the most valuable thing that they can, which is their time. They've entrusted me, like, hey, I'm going to give my time to you, and you're going to show me how to learn the ropes of sales. So they've given me that commitment. In return, I'm 100% committed to them. I'm available at any hour of the day to answer any of their questions. Taking them through the sales training, you have to have a script. You have to have a sales script. You might not. Some of the listeners might be so good at sales that they don't need scripts anymore, right? You and I, Trevor, we don't need scripts, right? But we have a basic script that we learned.
You can't train without one. It's impossible.
You have to have a script. You have to have it dialed in, and it has to be written out. There has to be a sales flow and a sales process written out, and then you have to break down what does each component of that sales flow process look like, and it has to be spelled out, and you have to give examples to your sales rep. So they have little tools in their tool belt that they can bring out when they're talking to prospects. So our sales script for our pest control company it's been around since I've known you, Trevor, 20 plus years.
It's a while.
And it's been effective, and we use it So teaching the sales rep that basic script, and then they just got to go and and bash their head against the wall and try to get it, go out and just learn it through repetition. So I let my sales reps know that, like, hey, you're going to learn the script, then I'm going to send you out to the wolves, and you're going to be terrible to begin with, and that's just an expectation. And I tell my sales reps, you're going to be terrible for the first 2 weeks, because you're going to be learning it. It takes about 600 prospects, 600 people to talk to before you start getting comfortable with the script, and before you start hearing every objection that is possible, out there, and knowing how to respond to it.
That's awesome. So Juan, if it's okay, I would like to kind of go through some scripting with you. I think a lot of our listeners, they just like hearing scripting,
I'm
dude.
not prepared, but let's do it.
So I don't know. We could do pest. You've sold some other stuff, solar, but why don't we just kind of imagine I'm a customer and you're selling me pest, dude.
Hey there, my name's Juan, just a bug guy with Rove Pest Control, out here bugging a couple of neighbors.
Okay, cool.
Listen, I know you have a pest control company already.
Yeah.
With a nice house like this, obviously you want to protect your property. But anyways, I was just talking to Jeff across the street. We're going to be setting him up on his preventive service. He's switching over from another company. Kind of likes what we're doing, likes the price point as well. But anyways, which company have you guys been using the last few years?
Oh, it's just something my wife set up. We just had it for a
Yeah.
while. It's like some dude and his kid or something that come by. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, you guys have division of labor in your household, right? That's kind of how it is in
Yeah.
my home. With my wife takes care of a lot of the home stuff as well. Well, listen, like I said, we're gonna be across the street with Jeff's home, getting him serviced, getting him set up. I'm sure with our price point and our service, this is something that your wife is definitely going to be interested in. Would you mind go grabbing her real quick, and I'll wait right here?
Yeah. Let me grab her real quick. Hey, honey, this is Juan.
Hey, nice to meet you. Hey, sorry to bother you. I know you're busy with 1,000 things. I'll keep this real quick. Was just at Jeff's house across the street. We're getting him set up on his pest control. He's switching over from another company. I know you have a company that you probably have loved for a few years now. But with what we're doing, with the price point that we're doing and the scope of service, Jeff just thought switching over was a no-brainer. And while we're at his house tomorrow, we're doing a big discount for the neighbors. But anyways, what company have you guys been going with the last couple of years?
Yeah, we've been with Frank's Pest Control. It's pretty cheap. It's like $125 a quarter.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of neighbors that have been using Frank. It sounds like he delivers a great service. In fact, one of the neighbors that we just set up, Nancy down the street, she just switched over from Frank's. Again, nothing against Frank, but let me show you actually what she liked about our service. Frank, he comes around, he does the foundation spray, right? Which
Yeah.
is pretty good. Yet we'll do the same thing as Frank, do that foundation spray. But what you're gonna love about our service is we go above and beyond. We'll beyond that foundation spray. We'll go out into your yard about 20 to 30 feet, to set up that barrier. Since Frank has been servicing your home, is it just these ants in the grass that you've been getting, or are the ants starting to come in the house a little bit?
Yeah, the ants are coming in the house a little bit. We've seen a few spiders too.
They're,
So,
they're starting to come in. Yeah, super common. Again, like I said, Frank does a pretty good job on the foundation. But if you're not getting that service out in the lawn where the ants actually originate, then you're missing a significant barrier that will help keep the ants out. No, those ants that you're getting inside the house, are they just in the kitchen, or are you seeing them on the second level?
just in the kitchen, not really seeing them upstairs or anything.
Okay, yeah, pretty common. And the ants, they're the little black ones, right?
Yeah.
They probably come out when your kids leave some food on the ground.
Yeah.
I've got 4 kids, and I hate when they do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that outside grass treatment will help with those ants. On the inside, what you'll like about us is we use a really clean crack and crevice technique. We'll replace our product behind the walls, so you don't have to worry about your kids or pets interacting with it. But yeah, like I said, we're going to be here tomorrow. I'm sure Frank just serviced your home maybe a couple of weeks ago.
So you mentioned price, discount. What's the price?
Yeah, it's about $1 million.
Of
How
course.
badly do you want to get rid of those ants, right? No, for a house your size, your home is probably what, 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So for a home your size, and just so you know, the neighbors that we got set up, they're not doing any long-term contracts like the solar guys. This isn't that 25-year deal.
Yeah.
We're just doing a 12-month trial program,
Okay.
and we come out 4 times a year. And the nice thing about our 12-month program in terms of pricing, you don't have to pay the full thing up front. we just bill you monthly, so it spreads the cost out throughout the year. But for home your size, normally to get set up on our 4 treatment 12-month program, you're looking at about $350 for that first service. But since you've been with Frank and we're going to be at your neighbor's house across the street getting them set up, we'll go ahead and bump that first treatment down to
Oh,
$35.
cool.
And then the monthly charge for your home, keeping in mind this includes the yard. So normally the monthly price for a home your size is typically about $65. But if we can get you set up tomorrow with the other neighbors, we'll knock that down to $50, about 15
Okay.
off.
Sounds like you got a little more value than Frank. You're doing a lot more than him.
Yeah, cool. I just need a name and credit card and get you guys started.
Okay. Sounds good. Boom. Dude, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So there's a lot of things there, Juan, that I just want to kind of isolate for some of the audience here. You did a lot of third-party selling. I call it bandwagon selling. Hey, all of our neighbors are doing this.
Yep.
They're switching over because of this, right? And giving them reasons why people are switching over. You're very personable. And then you also did a lot of drop-down sales. Hey, usually it's this. We can do it for this. A lot of good deals, right? Because we're out here, we can do it for really good deals. There's a lot of tactics that you used that just go to kind of just highlight why you're selling at such a high volume. As far as it goes, you weren't worried that your price was higher than Frank's, right? Because your price was higher than Frank's. You focus more on delivering value, and I think that's a key thing for our listeners, because a lot of people are like, oh, I got to be the cheapest around, but it's like, dude, it's hard to be the cheapest around and scale a business, right? So you got to learn how to sell off of value. But any other things that you think are worth kind of highlighting for our listeners about what you incorporate in your pitch?
Yeah, not sure if you noticed at the beginning, I assumed that they had a pest control company, right?
Yep.
If I'm gonna, I'm gonna knock out a couple of concerns in my initial approach. Hey, listen, I know you already have a company, right? Because how many times do you approach that prospect?
Yeah, I already
and they're
got a
like,
company.
oh, pest control, oh, alarm, oh, solar, whatever. I'm already doing this thing. I disarm them by telling them that they have this objection, and I'm still there.
Yep.
Like I hear your objection, but you're still going to want to listen to me. So that was really important. So my close off of my initial approach was, which company are you using? And in this example, it was the husband. I was talking to the husband, and he had no idea.
Yeah.
Right. So I identified that the husband was not the decision maker. I don't want to waste my time with non-decision makers.
Yep.
Right. I could do the whole pitch, the whole song and dance, give the price to the husband, and he's going to say, well, thank you. I'm going to pass that along to my wife. So I have to make sure I'm in front of the decision maker. I learned that the hard way for the first couple of years in sales, where
just
I gave
selling the wrong person,
selling the wrong person, right? I remember you call those single leggers.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to get in front of the right person, and I see a lot of sales reps when I'm training them
waste half an hour with the wrong person, dude.
Wasting half an hour, getting and the problem with pitching the wrong person is if you get to the price, you get to the price, what's that person going to do? What's that person going to tell the decision maker?
Oh,
they're going to tell them only the price.
Yeah,
they're not going to
that's
go
all they know.
Value build. They're not going to tell them, oh, they're going to take care of the ants in the yard, which are getting into our house, and they're going to help prevent that. If you would have told me that, oh, my wife's not here, she's busy, I would have just turned around and said, okay, I'll come back later.
Yeah.
And I would have just walked and turned around and not given you an opportunity to say, well, no, don't come back.
Yeah, there's no point of dropping the price if you're talking to the wrong person, dude. It's like a bad game of telephone. They have no idea of how to explain what you just explained to them. That's why you get paid what you do for what you do. So.
And the other thing I wanted to point was I call it watering down the contract length, right? No one wants to sign an agreement. I never call it a contract. I call it an agreement. And I always throw the solar guys under the bus. Hey, this isn't a 25-year deal for pests. It's just a 12-month starter program. That seems a lot less scary.
Juan, let's talk a little more about sales. Okay. I love the subject. You talked a lot about your growth and kind of your progress. What would you say some of your favorite sales books that you've read are? Like, sales training, sales books, just anything. I mean, I know you've got Rove as a training program. Maybe you've done anything else, or just any sales books. Just fill me in.
My favorite sales book is, I don't know if it's a sales book, but it's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It's a fantastic
by
book.
Dale Carnegie.
Yep.
Yeah, just such a good book. That book, reading that book saved one of my best sales reps. One of my best sales reps he was committed to working with me, was about to quit right before the sales season started. I was going to lose my best rep. I applied the principles in the book. My initial reaction of potentially losing my best sales rep was to yell at him and, hey, you signed a contract and
Yeah.
this is going to ruin everything and stuff. But I just stood back, applied the principles of the book. I said, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with it, but I hope you come around. And because I didn't berate him, I didn't yell at him. About a couple of weeks before the season started, he said, "Hey, do you still have a spot for me?" And he worked for me for 2 years and was my top sales rep. Um,
That's awesome.
so yeah, and I attribute that completely to that book. That book also talks about being able to talk. The best conversationalist to be in sales, you have to be a conversationalist. You have to get other people to talk, right? We're not mind readers, so we have to know what people are thinking. And reading the principles in that book really highlighted to me the importance of getting others to talk, especially about themselves.
Yeah.
People are going to like themselves. People are going to like you if you allow them to talk about themselves because people like themselves. So that book was hugely influential. Uh, there's I love Rejection Proof. I'm looking at it on my shelf right here. Rejection Proof is a book by G.I.
I've never heard of this book. I can't believe it, dude. I thought I knew all the sales books.
Yeah, so it was required reading for our reps a few years
That's
ago.
cool.
So he was a YouTuber. He started off. He had a mission to go through 100 days of rejection. So if the book starts off, he's in a suburb in Texas. He takes a soccer ball, goes and knocks on someone's door, and says, "Hey, can I go kick the soccer ball in your backyard?" Some random stranger. And by the way, can you film me while I'm doing this? So he's knocking a bunch of doors. Finally, someone agrees to allow him to do that. But he was actively seeking rejection because he feared rejection. He was an
That's
entrepreneur.
awesome.
He had all these ideas and he was so afraid. He kind of talks about his Chinese background and his kind of it's not looked in his culture that he was raised. He talks about it's not looked proudly upon as it try to do something risky,
Yeah.
and so he's kind of raised in that mentality. So he wanted to break through that. So he just and I try to tell my sales reps that like, hey, you got to seek rejection, right? So I tell my sales reps, go out and look for the no's. Go embrace those no's, right? Because it's every single no. I know it's cliche, but every single no gets you closer to a yes, and that's true for me. I know my sales ratio, my closing ratio. I know that I have to talk to. I'm going to close 50% of the decision makers I talk to. So for me, it's just a numbers game. I need to go talk. If I want to get 50 sales in a day or 20 sales in a day, I got to talk to 40 decision makers, and then half the people are going to tell me no. And I just know that's part of the equation.
Sales is just a numbers game, dude. You just got to bring people through the funnel. Um,
Yeah.
so something that's cool about your story, Juan. You got started in college doing door-to-door sales, selling pest control, and you're like, dude, I'm done with this. I'm going to go be a JAG. I'm going to go get a law degree. And, join the Air Force, you got your law degree, and you're practicing law for I don't know how many years. And then finally you're like,
5 years.
5 years. Yeah. And finally you're like, dude, I'm done with this. I'm getting back into this, door-to-door home service pest control game again. Like, can you walk us through like what happened there and why you decided to get back into it and just everything else?
Yeah, super crazy, right? Who goes from working at a big law firm, making great money and comfortable, kind of golden handcuffs. And I was just talking to one of my buddies about this. Alan Draper, he's similar. He's owner of a pest control company, um, former attorney as well.
Oh, that's cool.
We actually turned out we didn't know each other at the time, but it turned out he worked in the building right across from mine.
That's
And
wild.
he jumped ship about a year before I did. He got smart. He was smarter than me. Um, the mentality behind it is the great thing about home services is you can own a business, you can provide a great service to others while providing a lifestyle for you and your family that is comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Not beholden to a 9 to 5 So what I saw in the pest control industry in particular was this ability to build up a brand and to build up a business, provide jobs for other folks, and have this residual income, right? Because our customers are on a subscription-based model.
Yep.
And so I can sell it one time and I don't have to keep selling it,
Yeah.
right? Because these
Just
customers are
stays.
in. And with a good operations, Rove Pest Control, we've been around for 20 plus years. Our operators are the best. Our chief of operations, director of operations, they have it dialed in. So we just don't lose that many customers. So to be able to have a subscription-based model was allowed me to provide an opportunity to be with my family, which I didn't really have a whole lot of time working at a big law firm. So when I saw what my business partners were doing with Rove compared to the lifestyle I was living, just running that hamster wheel, that proverbial hamster wheel, right at the big law firm, I wanted something more, and I knew I could grow a business. I knew I could sell. I knew I could bring on customers. And that's a big part of just running a business, right? Is getting that customer base. And I knew I had that down. So why not plug it into a home service industry that's subscription based that can provide this type of lifestyle for me and my
It's
family.
awesome.
And it's been great. Right now I'm coaching my kids' sports. I see you doing the same,
Yep.
Trevor, with what you got going on, and that's really what it's about for me.
Got to live vicariously through our kids, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's awesome, man. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Sometimes people go for these more secure jobs, but, it's like a lot of times you're just grinding it out. Like you don't have much of a life.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can become a business owner, or even like a high performing salesperson, you can have a lot more flexibility and be able to go do these things that most people don't really have opportunities to go see and do, right?
I challenge the idea of security in those other jobs because we saw during COVID, I saw a lot of my friends worried about their jobs,
Yeah.
worried about what they were going to do. And then during COVID and sales and home service, we blew up.
Just
I mean, it was
cranked.
crazy the numbers that were going on. And
And it was deemed essential too, dude. Like that's the best part about it.
so, being able to sell and owning a business, I feel like is the best job security because no matter what, people can fire you, but you can sell. You can go find someone else to work for. Everyone is always looking. All companies are always looking for someone that can sell.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the most valuable skill sets to have in life is sales. You can always get a
Yep.
job, right? You're going to use it for the rest of your life, use it for your family, use it for everything. And if you ever do end up owning or running a business, I think the number's like, oh man, it's like 80% of CEOs in America all made their way up through the ranks through sales. Like there's a reason
Yep.
for it because
Yep.
with sales you have to learn how to move people and motivate people
Yep.
and inspire people. And as you grow in leadership, that's a lot of what it is, right? You have to learn how to
It
create
is. Yeah.
movements and create growth out of people. And sales to me is just foundational to all of that. So the cool thing is now you're, in this new role, you got equity in Rove, you're helping build Rove, you're doing a lot of cool things. I think you got some branches. I mean, overall, like how many branches does Rove have? Like, like, are you able to speak on revenue? Is that like kind of hush hush, whatever? But like, just speak to me a little bit about what you
Yeah.
got going on, man.
We operate in 5 different states: Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and here in Arizona, which is my home.
Cool.
And yeah, we're a multi-million dollar nationwide company. We've had branches all across the U.S. from time to time. We've gone through a couple of different acquisitions with Terminex in the past.
That's cool. So you guys have had been able to sell off and have some cash outs and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's been some sell-offs to Terminex in the past. Some of the offices like Arkansas, Oklahoma,
Yep.
the Utah office. Rove started in Utah as Mountain West Pest Control back in 2003, and that office was eventually acquired. I think the writing was on the wall. We saw how much pest control and door to door was kind of blowing up in Utah,
Oh
and
yeah.
said, okay, we'll head further east then.
Yeah, your accounts be getting
And
sniped
so,
and switched over left and right, dude. I wouldn't leave I wouldn't leave accounts there, man.
yeah. By the time Mountain West or Rove left Utah, it was the largest residential pest control company in Utah.
Wow. And for me, that's a great part about pests, right? You can go build up a branch, go get however many few thousand accounts and sell it off, have a nice cash out, but you can still keep building your residual other places, right? And so as an owner, you can have these like mini cash outs and just keep going, right? And I think that's one of the very appealing parts of Pest.
With a cash out, with Rove, when we look at an acquisition or selling the company, to us it's a very hard decision.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to sell for 5x multiple for 10x, we're all young dudes. We can keep doing this for another 5 years or another 10 years. So why not just keep that residual
just
flowing
live off
in
the
and
cash flows, right?
income? Yeah, the cash flow. So that's just one thing that an owner has to look at is when they're looking at selling is how long would it take me if I were not to sell? How long would it take me to earn this money that I'm being offered? Obviously, there's other circumstances, health, family, other things, just a different interest that want to move on. But if you're selling just for the money, I would encourage you to pause and think like, well, could I make up this money in 2 or 3 years? How much am I really being offered?
Another few things that I think are interesting about what you're doing. So you're also even helping with in-house, legal. I think you're even helping advise other service companies on M&A just because of your interesting background. Like, can you kind of just fill me in a little bit as far as what you've got going on, what you got cooking, man?
Yeah. So at Rove, we've made the decision to move me into in-house counsel. We're about 100 plus employees across the U.S. So there's just different issues that pop up. Contracts constantly need to be reviewed. In a lot of states that we operate in, like for Minnesota, for example, the employment law landscape is always changing. So agreements have to change, right? An agreement that we did for Mountain West Pest Control 20 years ago
It's
isn't
not
going
going to
to
work.
apply
Yeah.
to Minnesota or to Massachusetts, nowadays. So that's one piece of advice I'd give to business owners that are listening to this is you need to find a good attorney that can help you make sure your contracts are up to date, make sure you're in compliance with employment law. Do you know those little nuances like in if you're operating in Minnesota, if you're operating in Wisconsin, if you're operating in Utah, do they have a mandatory, PTO policy that you have to comply with as a company? Are your contracts are you operating in a state where they've actually banned non-compete agreements with employees? Some of the states that Rove is in have banned non-compete agreements
Yep.
for employees. There was the big FTC thing that everyone is worried about at the federal level, but are you looking at your state's requirements? So having an attorney, Rove's decided to bring that in-house because if you're constantly looking for outside legal counsel for documents that you need or for employment questions that you have, or negotiating contracts with vendors, your legal bill can rack up there. So having me in-house, knowing the industry has helped out Rove quite a bit. On the M&A front, that's really where a lot of my role comes to really the emphasis of my role is developing those relationships with business owners, and then when the time is right for them to sell, being someone that they know and that they trust and that they're comfortable with talking about selling their business, because that's a very personal thing
Oh
for a lot
yeah.
of these home service providers.
Very emotional.
A lot of these home service providers, as you probably know, they call it the baby boom, sell off, right? You have all these baby boomers that are in the home service industry that are looking to retire and sell off their business. They want to sell to someone that's going to treat their customers just as kindly and just as well as they did for all those years. This is the baby that they've built. So my role is to develop those relationships, and then if the time is right, approach them with an offer to sell their business. When you do that, you do a LOI, a letter of intent. You agree to the purchase price in writing. Then you move into due diligence, where you're analyzing their business. You're looking at their accounts. You're looking at their taxes, their financials. So I go through that due diligence process, and then it comes to closing the deal, right? Then you got to draft up the purchase agreement, draft up the contract. So that's what I help Rove with now.
That's awesome. That sounds great, man. And I think you guys have done a few acquisitions, right?
Yeah, we've done about 5 acquisitions across our different markets.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. It's just interesting because you can grow a service business through acquisition. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but
there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
It's not just this quick thing. You have to foster it, develop the relationship, and time it with whoever's
Yeah.
going to sell, right?
Yeah. And you have to, I see in being in this acquisition world, you see a lot of home service providers that want to get into the acquisition game, um, but they just don't know where to start. And I've seen handshake deals. I've heard of like handshake deals, like, yeah, I'll buy your business with a good old handshake. If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna acquire another business, if you're gonna merge, make sure you have legal counsel.
Yeah.
Make sure you have someone guiding you through that process. My background when I was working at the big law firm is I did litigation, and I actually represented a client, a ma and pa that had built this medical billing code company, to a multi-million-dollar company, just a husband and wife team, just really business savvy. They sold to a bigger, conglomerate, and in 2 or 3 years, they were in litigation over basically the failure of the business because the acquiring company didn't want to listen to the husband and wife how to run their business. They thought they had it figured out, and they just ran that business into the ground.
Jeez.
And I ended up in litigation, years later. And this was that couple's retirement, and it just wasn't a great situation. Had they had, some more protections in place, that could have been avoided.
That's wild. So lots of interesting things. Now, Juan, I mean, obviously you probably know more than most anyone out there as far as pest control goes. Some of our listeners could even be interested as far as starting a pest control company. I guess if someone were to start, what advice would you give? Do you think they kind of need a door-to-door background to be in pest? I mean, I feel like with as much door-to-door happens in pest, but I don't know. I mean, what advice would you give to someone looking to get into the industry?
I would say if you're gonna do door to door, if you're getting into pest, if you can sell door to door, then you can do it yourself. That's actually how Mountain West Pest Control, Rove started with Lenny Gray. He was just out knocking doors. He put on 1,142 accounts in one summer to start up Mountain West Pest
It's
Control.
amazing.
And his business partner, who's our CFO now, was just right behind him with the truck spraying the houses.
It's
They
awesome.
shoestrung it together with a credit card. I think Lenny's wife was answering the phones, or maybe it was McKay, his business partner, that was answering the phones. Just kind of shoestrung it together. If you can sell, that might be a model that works for you. If you can't sell, you're not comfortable with it. I would say door to door, like bringing in a door to door sales team, you're probably looking at 3 to 5 years down the road. It is so expensive nowadays to bring an outside door-to-door sales team in, at least in the pest control space. You're talking about 100% to 110% of first year revenue to bring in an outside marketing company to run a door-to-door program for you.
Yeah, you're going in the hole to put up accounts. It's tough.
That's a lot of money. And I've seen, and Trevor, you know this too. We've seen companies that aren't able to pay out those contracts because they're just in a hole,
Yeah.
and they don't have the financing or the capital to do so.
No, I get it, man. Yeah, as far as it goes, really great advice across the board. I mean, we talked on a lot of things, sales, why the home service industry. I'm a huge proponent of home services. I feel like with a lot of the AI, Juan, that home service is one of the last things that AI is going to be able to touch. It's really hard to get robots to go around and service homes as far as pest control goes. It's really hard to go get robots to go out and go sell pest control accounts. You know what I mean? So I think home services, and like you even said, it's deemed essential. We talked about how important sales is. I feel like sales is just a skill for life that we all need to have. So, Juan, so kind of wrapping up, there's a few questions I like to ask anyone that's ever on the show that I think are pretty cool questions. So if you had to choose one book, I know you talked about how to win friends and influence people, but like any book aside from that, where you're like, dude, this is the most influential book in my life, on business, on success, on just anything. What book would it be and why?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm gonna go with the 5 a.m. Club. Um, not it, the book is great, um, but it changed my mindset. I talked about kind of my physical change and my and that how that improved my mental
Sales.
approach
Oh,
to
yeah.
life as well. The 5 a.m. Club presents just a prescription for structuring your life in a way to maximize your human potential. So I still do it to this day. I don't wake up at 5 a.m. Just because I'm up too late with the kids
Yeah.
and other things. But that winning the morning, or that power hour first thing in the morning, getting sunlight, working out, eating right, just having that structure, has really changed the way I approach life and how I feel throughout the day. And it's been a game changer for me.
That's awesome. And if you had to choose one person, business mentor, someone you could go spend a whole day with, who would it be and why? Could be alive, dead, whatever.
Yeah, who I really like is I like Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
And the reason why is he started door to door.
Yeah, he did. What was it? Trash cans. He did trash cans door to door.
Yeah, and he said he'd put his kids through it. He thinks this is the best. So I agree a lot with his mentality, and to see, he understands that people connection and that importance, that skill set that you get through sales, and to see what he's been able to do with that background is absolutely incredible.
It's awesome. It's fantastic. So, Juan, I mean, it's been amazing. We talked about a lot of great subjects. Hopefully our listeners got tons out of it. And, just even with like your sales approach, dude, I hope everyone go back and listen to that multiple times and work to apply a lot of things that you did. A lot of it happened really fast, but I was making note of a lot of the cool things that you're doing in your sales pitch. So if any of our listeners want to reach out, maybe they want to know more about Pest, about Rove, just about some of the stuff you've done, your experience and background, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? Like LinkedIn, email, like what's the best way if they want to reach out or sync up?
I'm on LinkedIn, Juan Godinez, Godinez. Definitely send me an invite. I'm on that. My email as well. My email is Juan, Juang, as in Godinez, at rovepestcontrol.com. So they can reach out to me that way. I'd be happy to connect.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great. Thanks so much for being here. Guys, thanks for being here as well. It's another fantastic episode for the Service Contractor All-Star. We'll see you.
This has been the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddux, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Join us next time for more amazing content.